I think having a set commander is really the only thing a few players have right now. But I think as soon as more players figure out what they like playing, I think we might be seeing it a lot more.
Yeah. So we've
Mess
got
with
the
their
gentleman's.
minds.
Yeah, that's well because everyone knows Chip takes the quartermaster usually when he can get it. So it's like, if I was playing against Chip, I might just kind of try to snag that to see if I can just throw him off just a little bit. But at any rate, we're hopping in this game. The gentleman's spawning in the north. His opponent, Spartak, spawning in the south. Pretty standard decks coming out of both of them. So we've got the Squizzard and Pigeon composition coming out of the gentleman, and we see some ferrets. AV, it's those ferrets you were hoping to see.
Yeah, if Spartak decides to add those warrants to his front lines, we're going to be seeing them fall. I think probably the main response to not going the ferrets is because falcons have had sort of a resurgence. So in an upfront battle, most ferret armies will probably die to that sort of composition. But as long as you micro well enough, I think the ferrets can output a lot of upfront damage.
That's really true, and I think that ferrets are kind of falling into this really supportive siege unit role in the game, where if you're trying to make any kind of push with early ferrets just by themselves, yeah, you're going to just die to falcons. But I see a lot of players just building up a big old squirrel ball and then keeping their ferrets way back in the distance because they've got, I believe, the same range as a drumfire cannon. They don't have the vision for it, but they've got the same range of like 8 or 9, I believe, and so they can sit way back. And first Warren going down for Spartak is a tier 2 Chameleon.
Yeah, he even had a tier 1 going, but then he sold it, put down more farms, and then it had a tier 2 started. And even Gentleman doesn't really have any units out now. It seems like we're seeing some Warren mind games going on, seeing who's selling what, who's getting farms out quicker, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, the gentleman kind of throwing down those 2 Warrens, and then I'm always kind of curious about that because I think he threw down the 2 Warrens just in case he needed the production to go, but then he continued to queue up his farms, and when you queue a farm, your units do not build. It reserves that food until the farm can be built. So no matter how many Warrens you have, if you queue up a farm, then all of your production kind of stops. So I think the gentleman just kind of had those 2 just in case, depending on what he saw in his scouting, but then decided that he could just continue to queue up. So Spartak is indeed continuing with those mind games. He sells off one of his Warrens, throws down the Snake Warren, and then rebuilds that Warren. So we're seeing a lot of, it's like these guys are playing with Legos here in their base.
Yeah, it seems like Spartak is keeping those tier 1s until he is satisfied that, okay, the Gentleman's not going to attack me here. I think I'm okay to sell, put down a tier 2, and then by the time he even attempts to do any damage against me, I'll have an extra tier 2 out. So he's really hoping for those really short timings where he might be down an army, but then he'll be fine seconds later with a higher tier unit.
Yeah, good point. I think he's just kind of banking on that, and it's going to pay off because the gentleman's looking to play a little bit more of a defensive game, putting up a sniper balloon, which I don't think has gotten too much attention, other than a damage buff a little while ago. I don't think there's anything done to the sniper balloon in the latest patch. Is that right, Avi?
Yeah, nothing done to the sniper balloon at all. I think if we are seeing it more these days, it's because tier 2 is becoming more popular, and that sniper balloon is, it's not great, but it's okay at sort of stopping some tier 2 from harassing it.
It seems to do a really good job when paired with drumfire cannons, but the problem there is they're just so damn expensive together that it's just so usually not feasible to get both of those together. But when you can, it makes it a pretty tough to attack position because it's hard to even get your commander in there to get any kind of sneaky attack on the drumfire. But drumfires by themselves are even just pretty good. So not Bannered, the gentleman here is the game we're watching. He's got 2 ferrets and 2 chameleons out and looking to use them to fortify this extra expansion heavily, throwing down the balloons here on the tiniest little patches that he's got.
Yeah, the Gentleman has a great map here. Notice that Spartak has no access to these sort of southward expansions. He would have to loop all the way around the map, past where the Gentleman is currently setting up. So I think I would like to see Spartak apply some damage quick so he can potentially take this area in the map at least. Otherwise, he's just going to be falling behind come late game.
Really interesting here too that the gentleman here is taking this expansion on the left hand side. I didn't even catch that until right now. So he grabbed the campfire in the swamp here, and then also decided to get that expansion. And I think he's just confident. He's playing a really good mind game here with Spartak because he's like, hey, this is my base. I'm defending the hell out of it. You better not come in here. And so Spartak is kind of taking the bait and just positioning himself around there, and it's going to make it a little bit sad for him if and when he sees this other up and running expansion on the left hand side.
I'm gonna see if he's even... Oh, he hasn't even really scouted that southward. He has no idea those 2 mills are where they are. So he might be thinking, oh, he's not really in that good a position because he's only got 1 or 2 more mills to take, but he's actually got 3 to 4.
Right, and this, what is the Boar's health now? I don't remember if that got changed. Is it 100 or less than 100 now?
I want to say it's at 80 now, down from 100.
Yeah, I know that's what because less than 100 is what I know Andy wanted to do. I just don't remember if he actually did it. So the Boar coming out here, I wanted to call out his health because these sniper balloons are going to do a pretty darn good job against him because the Boar now explodes when it dies, which makes sense. He's carrying a flamethrower with some volatile chemicals on his back, but that's only really going to be helpful if he explodes in a good place. So if Spartak isn't careful with this engagement, these sniper balloons might take out the Boar before he's able to do really much of anything.
The gentleman has invested quite heavily into farms, so there is a bit of a timing here where Spartak can attack with his Boar and just potentially beat him out in army, but that timing is getting lost very quickly here. Ooh, wow.
Yeah, with these 3 balloons, this is going to be easier said than done. Spartak almost losing his own life as a commander, which would have been really tough for this engagement because this is going to be a micro-intensive battle as he pushes in. The Flame putting down some really good work against these the entire Tier 1 army of the gentleman, and he was able to push through. The Boar living with 8 health, standing in the back here, getting healed up slowly but surely by these pigeons. He's going to continue to push forward as these ferrets are kind of bombing from a distance, and this engagement was just really well executed by Spartak. I'm not sure if he just did an excellent job with the micro or sniper balloons are just a little bit underwhelming, but this Boar is going to take down this gristmill. Spartak probably thinks that he's a little more ahead than he is because he still doesn't know about this base from the gentleman. Right? Yep, he still doesn't know about it, and so sitting back here isn't going to pay off as much as it normally would. So he's trying to do the win your ahead, get more ahead thing, but if he doesn't re-engage soon, which it looks like he's trying to, the gentleman's not going to be in as bad of a spot as he thinks.
Yeah, he's going to need to keep up this pressure, take this area of the map, and in the very least, set up to potentially take this northern base. And he won that fight before because of the gentleman's lack of army. As I said, that the gentleman invested a lot into farms instead of army when Spartak had a tier 3 plus some extra tier 2s and tier 1. And he invested a lot into the sniper balloons, which are kind of good, but in an upfront fight, if you're not protecting them well enough, they sort of just die.
Yeah, I mean, that's 3 of those balloons is 360 food, so that's the same cost as a tier 3 Warren and unit, and so obviously in that last engagement, the tier 3 unit did a little bit better than the tier 3's food worth of sniper balloons. So he's going to go for a really crazy engagement across water here. Water is going to be the best friend of ferrets because these slow-moving units are going to have a harder time in avoiding those shots. The Boar is going to start laying down some heavy fire from the background. He's going to nuke out most of the gentleman's tier 1 army. These chameleons bouncing in and out, getting a bunch of poison snake stacks on them as they're going to fall. These 4 ferrets laying down some serious hurt from a distance, and Spartak is going to just retreat after taking out that gristmill for the second time.
Wow, if it wasn't for this water, I think Spartak would be just mowing down the gentleman right now, because even in the water, on the small little bridge, he's still winning engagements, killing mills, taking out units. So I guess the gentleman's really lucky he has this this water to fall behind on.
It's really paying off for him. I mean, I think he's got a generally more defensive deck, and this map kind of favored him for it, so he's been able to hold off. And again, at this point, if I were Spartak, I'd be like, man, how do you still have so much stuff? So I would hope that little alarm bells might be going off in his head. He's starting to move across the map, and so maybe he'll, at long last, find this other gristmill for the gentleman. Because, yeah, I mean, you've got to be thinking by now, like, what in the world is going on? But actually, is he going for just some kind of sneaky chameleon placement here? It's unfortunate that you can't really see them that easily, but you can see them in the water. I wonder if the gentleman can see that. That would be really interesting if you can see the ripples in the water from the chameleons. All right.
You can see the grass move and everything like that.
All right. Cool beans.
Yeah, Spartak is going to have to be making a move here because he's going to need to at least take this northern mill, take out those balloons, because I think there was an opportunity after the first fall of the mill for Spartak to do a re-engage and keep trading with the gentleman, but now the gentleman might have too good a position and enough army to stop it, but maybe the Boar will be the defining factor in these fights.
And these ferrets from the gentleman are just a really good decision with all this water. Spartak's going to move in across water again with even more ferrets in, though. I'm not sure this engagement's going to go as well. The Boar's starting to lay down his fire and get all that tier 1 out of there really quickly, but the gentleman still has all 6 of his ferrets, so if he's able to get some really good micro going, he might be able to take the upper hand in this engagement. So far, not so much, because the reinforcements slowly swimming across this lake here from Spartak are putting in some good work. The Boar is still sitting pretty healthy at 57 health. And the gentleman losing a couple of his ferrets. It's that, I'd say overall that's a pretty even engagement. I mean, the gentleman lost obviously everything except for his ferrets, but Spartak was pretty much in the same position. He's still got the Boar, which is going to be the kind of linchpin to keeping the gentleman on his back foot. These ferrets putting down that covering fire is just not quite paying off as much as it used to. This engagement, Spartak's starting to take the top, but he is now starving AV until he throws down that one farm in a very hard to defend position.
Yeah, I would suggest that he moves that back, because that can easily get sniped for a ferret.
Yeah, that's true, and you can only sell the farm while it's building, and
as we
boom,
say that,
it just
there it
gets
goes.
sniped, and he has no food. So this is a really tough position for Spartak, because he's got to sell stuff and find a good spot for this farm, and he keeps putting in that front position. God, Spartak just painfully losing some money. He doesn't know that he doesn't have enough money for that farm to actually go. He's got it queued, but that doesn't prevent starving.
Yeah, the defining factor for this game so far has really been this water in the ferrets that work well in these swampy type maps. You can see it here that Spartak really has to keep up with these ferrets, keep microing around, otherwise they're going to do a ton of damage to his mill.
This is such an interesting way for this game to play out, because Spartak was more or less winning. Granted, the gentleman had those bases, and now he even has another one on the left-hand side of the map. So I'm thinking there's nothing Spartak can do here. He just still doesn't know about this base from the gentleman, so I'm not sure what he's thinking his path to victory is going to be, and having that farm building now prevents his starvation, but this gristmill is one ferret shot away from being destroyed and putting Spartak into an even more painful starving position.
Yeah, if he had to take it back and do it all over again, I'd say that after he initially killed that mill to begin with, he would have been a bit more aggressive in taking this northern mill earlier, as to not let the gentleman get as much army as he did. But,
Ooh, we get to see an awesome Boar explosion there, taking out the remaining ferrets, but Spartak has nothing left and he's going to tap out. So yeah, that was, I mean, if I had to do that over that one part, I would see that the gentleman was kind of playing a very defensive game. So Spartak definitely didn't have a good reason not to be scouting the map. That's kind of something, after a big engagement, you kind of want to just do your due diligence, run around the map and be like, okay, am I really ahead right there? Because if he would have noticed that base, he could have easily taken out that gristmill along the left-hand side, and that was single-handedly what was keeping the gentleman in the game.
yeah, I think Spartak, as you said, it was unaware to how much how much of an advantage the gentleman really had on economy. And I think he might have played his game because of that knowledge a bit differently than he should have.
Yeah, agreed. And again, the ferrets, especially a good pick on that map generation for the gentleman. Having so much water made it such an uphill battle for Spartak, and which he did well. I mean, he was destroying in a lot of those early engagements. So he had the right engagement. He did them correctly. It was just a matter of information in that game, because there was no way the gentleman could have defended that other base. So hopping into game number 2, we're seeing I think that's the same loadout for Spartak, and so he's going to decide. I think if I were him, that's the way I would feel. I was like, that game, pretty much I should have won. I just didn't. I wonder if he even went back and checked the replay, because for the entire game, he didn't know there was a base. So I'm worried that in Spartak's mind, he's like, man, the gentleman is just cheating. He's getting more food than me. And so hopefully he just assumed he missed a base, because spawning on the left-hand side is Spartak, down 0-1 in the series. Against his opponent, the gentleman in the blue, looking to close it out.
Wow. Yeah, as a ferret player, it is really nice when you start seeing these swampy type lands. It's like, nice. You start scoping out all these spots where you can sit and potentially rain down fire. Like even this like little bit of high ground. If Spartak loses the map advantage, gentleman could take advantage of this bit of high ground and destroy warrens, pigs, maybe even the main.
Yeah, that's definitely, and like some of these little campfires, we see that campfire right by the gentleman's base. That's going to be, well, he's the one who has ferrets, so he's not going to have to worry about that. But that that high ground above Spartak is going to be a very painful place for an avenue of attack from the gentleman.
Luckily, Spartak does have pigeons, so against early aggression, let's hope he gets them out relatively early, and he foresees that the gentleman could use that to his advantage.
That has been the typical strategy I take. Like a lot of people, that's like one of the favorite things people like to complain about with the map generation when they're trying to say that it's super unfair. And I agree, sometimes you're for sure at a disadvantage with the way map generation works, but a lot of times it just influences your strategy too. So Spartak indeed taking a page out of AV Ultima's book right there, getting some pigeons really early to make sure he doesn't die to anything ridiculously frustrating coming out of those cliffs on his high ground.
He even plopped down the pigeon first, and now it's coming out just a little bit sooner.
And that's what I've done sometimes, because those pigs are so close. That's something always to remember, that those pigs are close enough to the cliff that anything attacking them, the pigs can attack as well. So the pigeons just give high ground for your pigs, and then also for any future units. So I've definitely been in that position, and it looks like the gentleman was indeed trying to do that. So he's going to move across with, 9 squirrels. So even though Spartak has made the right decisions, this is going to be a little bit of a tricky hold here. We'll see how well it goes for him. So the battle starts. The gentleman's kind of focusing on that warren, and it goes just fine. He's able to push him out pretty easily, taking out a couple squirrels for absolutely no damage done to Spartak. No permanent damage, that is.
Gentleman taking this forward mill, probably going to try to do some extra aggression. Ooh, he might. I wonder if when it splits this territory, he'll be in range to perhaps, put a balloon right there. Yeah, looks like that's what he's doing.
Yeah, that'll definitely be in range to be sniping those pigeons as they come out. I think, do the sniper balloons have the same attack range as they do vision range? Because they have like the biggest vision range in the game.
Not equal to the vision range, but it is very high. I think equal to the Fox, whatever that range is.
Oh man, did it? Yeah, it's getting those things right out of those warrens. So this is a really good play coming out of the gentleman. A really good use of sniper balloons. A structure that doesn't necessarily see that much play, or at least not super successful play. So kind of exciting to see, even though this would be a really frustrating thing to play against. Oh, it could even get that pigs. So that sucks for Spartak. So kind of a painful way for this map to spawn, and the gentleman is definitely taking no pains to go easy on Spartak. He is going to push this map advantage to the limit here as he throws up another sniper balloon, giving Spartak almost no recourse but to try to take this base behind and turn that into his new main.
Yeah, some people here might be saying that, wow, this was totally unfair. I mean, what was Spartak meant to do here? And I'd like to point out that he did respond well by getting those pigeons, but then he put down 2 tier 2 warrens, a snake and a chameleon, early on. So if the gentleman responded by putting down tier 1 for continued early aggression, then there was nothing Spartak could have done anyway. So I think it was just a lack of forethought on, oh no, if the gentleman keeps being aggressive, then I'm sort of screwed here. And I don't think Spartak saw that.
Yeah, that's true. That getting this base a lot sooner could have been the right thing, because the gentleman, though he was doing some really, punky, cheeky strategies, he also invested a lot of money into those sniper balloons, and so that would have given Spartak the room he needed to kind of get this econ going. And unfortunately, the gentleman he took that gristmill just for the kind of positional advantage, but now he's also starting to fill it out and pull into a pretty comfortable position, sitting at 12 farms plus a campfire to 11. He's looking pretty good both economically and army-wise, because he's definitely done more damage to Spartak than the other way around.
I'd like to point out again how much money the gentleman spent to get this initial push going. He spent 60 on the mill, and then 120 on the balloons. So that's 180 food and not into army. So if Spartak had have invested into more tier 1 instead of waiting on that tier 2, he would probably still have his farms here and maybe even taking this high ground away from the gentleman.
Yeah, it's so hard to make the right decisions when you're, because you do, there's no bones about it. Spartak was at a disadvantage from when this game began. I always refuse to believe that maps are completely unwinnable, but he was definitely at a disadvantage from the beginning of this game. And so it's so hard to make those decisions. Tooth and Tail is a relatively slow-paced game, but when it comes to these early game decisions, you have to kind of decide, you have to learn the map, figure it out quickly, and make the right decision. And he even tried to. We saw him throw down those early pigeons, so it just didn't quite pan out. And so hindsight being 2020, Spartak's going to try to eke out a little bit of a lead by taking a campfire in the gentleman's territory. We'll see if he ends up scouting that out. He's going to see it right now, but campfires don't do a great job of showing who they belong to, but he's definitely going to see that Spartak's taking one in his territory, and he's going to move his entire army across, clean up these chameleons. Ooh, good play by Spartak to almost take out that gristmill. Might end up losing these chameleons as they make their way across the map, and sure enough, but Spartak has the Boar out right now, which makes pretty much any number of tier 1 units almost pointless, but this amount of chameleons is just going to be way too much, as this Boar is going to explode in fantastic style, taking out the entire army of the gentleman. Man, I don't even care if Spartak wins the game. That's some major bragging rights right there.
Wow, that he lost like almost all of his tier 1 and
all the soft chameleons, yeah.
Wow, that was the first time I had seen the Boar in action, so that was pretty cool.
That was awesome to see. So the Boar does do 10 damage to any units within like a 9 square radius or something like that. So that is enough to kill any tier 1 units just at all. And then it killed a lot of those soft chameleons as well. And it does also hit air. So it just literally wiped the map there. And they're on relatively, oh no, the gentleman's sitting on a little bit higher army supply. But we'll see as this engagement plays out. We've got chameleon on chameleon action right now. The gentleman's chameleons are going to come through and just be a wave of terror and friggin' health points as they just bust through Spartak's army, and the gentleman managed to take that game and the series 2-0. So a bit of a rough map there, AV, for Spartak. I'll have to admit it.
Yeah, some would say that he got the rough end on the stick on both maps there. But at one point in that game, Spartak